I will repeat that. The one thing that you should absolutely do before you even consider getting a hysterectomy is an astrological transit reading. Again, in case this wasn't clear, I want you to know that some transit would hit you like you are possessed and you don't even know what's going through life. That's why you need to know what transits are you going through right now. Are you acting from 1,000% sane place? This is the idea behind today's video, okay? I'm not saying people who get hysterectomy are insane, but I'm just saying we want to know what's going on in your own life energetically, right? Because this is how you can make the best decision for you. Let's talk about the elephant in the room first. Do I regret having my hysterectomy? We are talking about a very sensitive topic today. I've been really wondering about if I wanted to approach this for the past a few months now, and I've been really thinking about which way I wanted to talk about it. But I finally think I want to keep this really simple, but it has to be said. That's the type of video, episode, podcast I wish I had stumbled upon, when I was going through the same thing. And this is how, if you are considering a hysterectomy, this is one thing I do recommend, and I'm not saying this lightly, that you do. Okay, do not consider having hysterectomy before you do that one thing. And that is making sure you book your own, making sure that first of all, you know your own, natal chart, like you are very well versed in your own birth chart. And second of all, well, it's kind of like the same thing to be honest, but making sure that you get a transits reading. Now, the reason why I brought up the whole basic, foundational reading first is because there's just not enough time in a session, to do both foundational reading, as in going through your birth chart reading, the base, and then reviewing the transit that you're going through. It's just not enough time in one session to do all of these things. So that's why you need to start knowing your birth chart reading, the basics first, understanding like what it's all about, and then because the transit is an advanced reading, and then once you do that, you do the transit reading. Now, all of these things you could do with me. I have my booking calendar down below. So moving on, why am I talking about this? Because I've been thinking about this a lot. Okay, so uh let's talk about the elephant in the room first. Do I regret having my hysterectomy? It's not as simple as yes or no, but we'll shove it in a box as yes and no. Actually, it's both yes and no. The reason, like, I don't regret my hysterectomy for the obvious reason that people think. When people say they regret the hysterectomy, people automatically think, oh, they've changed their mind, now they want kids and all that stuff. When it comes to me, it's not that. I don't regret it on that sense. Okay. I still feel the same way I feel about that. I do I'm very involved in my community. I give back. I'm actually really good with kids. My my strength, I'd say, is teenagers. I absolutely love working with teenagers, and that just means also just my friends' teenagers. They always say how I have such affinity with teenagers, and that's because, hello, I was going to a Pluto transit deep in throughout my teenage years, like a Pluto transit in my first house. Of course, that period of my life is going to be highly, highly charged. Uh, but what I'm saying is, this is why you need to know what transit you're going through. Because when I think back at the period of time where I had my hysterectomy, things were going really fast. And again, when I look back, I don't know why I didn't do it before, because again, things happened so fast, and that's because of the transits I was going through. Um, there were all sorts of, like, things going on in the chart. And the reason why I recommend that you make sure you get a transit reading, because looking back now, I'm like, oh my God, that I feel like that was a little bit of an extreme response. Yes, I had a lot of, like, God forbid I had a lot of like health issues back then. But I also feel like that was a very extreme response, because the part that I regret about the hysterectomy, again, it's not the part that people tend to think about, the baby reason and then the reproductive, system. That's not really it's not the baby, making part that I really I regret. That part doesn't affect me at all. Again, it's different for everyone. For me, I'd say it's the long term effect that no one talks about. It's the health ramifications. That's the part that, because of that part that I kind of like regret in a way. It's not because of the baby part, it's because of the impact that it has, and the impact that you just don't really know, because again, I feel like it is a very, very common surgeries for women, but most women get it when they are closer to menopause. When some women are way advanced in their menopause, most women get it when they're like in their late 40s, 50s, 50s, 60s. I've even heard 70s. I'm not saying, oh gosh, it's these women don't need, like, that's not what I'm saying, but it's very different when you get a hysterectomy in your later, and when you get a hysterectomy, the younger you get it. The younger you get it, the more health ramification like you will tend to have, as in the statistics are higher. Now, the part that I don't like is that doctors don't really spend enough time talking about that, and it's one of those like hindsight is 2020. For example, when I got my hysterectomy, right after that, I hit perimenopause. I had no idea. No doctor ever brought it up. Had one doctor even mentioned that, best believe that I would have had nothing to do with the hysterectomy, just for that reason alone, because this is opening a whole can of worms. So technically, getting a hysterectomy to fix, various health issues, and then you opening a whole can of worms, which is even worse. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not talking about women who, God forbid, have ovaries cancer, and then there's nothing else that is pretty much the wisest decision for them. I'm talking about like other people who maybe could have like taken another approach. So that's one thing I want to talk about. I feel like this is why I felt that deep responsibility to release this episode today, because I've been this has been really weighing on my mind a lot, and I feel like, again, no one was talking about that, and I wish that I had stumbled upon that video. Again, it is what it is. This is where I also believe that there is in life, there's both. There's also like fate, and there's free will. It's a mixture of both. We're not gonna get deep into spirituality again, but then again, when I open my birth chart, you could really see how, in a way, an event like that was kind of fated, because it actually put me in the path I was supposed to be in. Because I really do believe that there's some events in life that that are just fated. It's part of the life course that your soul choose for your lifetime. So at the same time, free will also does exist. Again, I feel like now we're more aware of that. We're having those conversations more, how there's many timelines. And so again, I'm not gonna make this episode today too spiritual. That's not the point I wanted to do. I wanted to keep it really short and sweet. Do I regret my hysterectomy? No, I don't regret the hysterectomy, because I still don't want to have kids. Yes, I mean, I don't want to have my own biological kids. I don't feel, maybe later I would still feel the desire to adopt. I never felt the need to bear my own biological children. I could very well see myself adopting a kid and loving them equally as if they came out of my own body. So this is where I stand on that topic. On the other side, if someone asks me, do I regret getting a hysterectomy for health reason, then I could say yes, in a way, because I wasn't aware of the complexity of if things go south. Because doctors always tell you, oh, no worry, everything goes fine. It's a very highly done surgery. But then again, in my case, maybe I wasn't too lucky, where like all the things that could have went wrong, And when I went in to get a hysterectomy, I wasn't expecting to to hit perimenopause like literally right away. So that, and it hits you very, very differently when you hit perimenopause in your early 30s, because no one and no other friends in that life stage is going through that. I remember I was recovering from my hysterectomy. A friend called me literally the day after when I was in bed to ask me about if she should get an abortion. I was just like, oh my goodness, this is not the right timing for this right now. And then, and then you have another friend. I had another friend that was going through, that was pretty much pregnant and having her baby that she really wanted very much, and I was really happy for her and all that stuff, because we all want different things in life, right? But it's I'm giving you those examples just to tell you that going through hitting perimenopause in your early 30s, when you look around in your friend circle, most likely it's going to be isolating as hell. Now I always claim to everyone that I pretty much, this is why I make so many content about Pluto transiting your first house, because now that I look back, because hindsight is 2020 as usual, the experiences that I've been through life is perfectly aligned with the type of thing that Pluto transiting your first house will bring your way. You know what I mean? The most intense death and birth, rebirth experiences, and getting thrown into the deep. And this is very in line with Pluto transit in your first house. So again, I just wish that in an ideal world, I feel like every woman would have their birth chart reading and a transit analysis before considering a hysterectomy, because it would really align and that can really help you slow down, really journal, really ask yourself and really compare your real options. Because again, astrology doesn't control us per se, but it's energies that are there. And then the point is we want to be aware of that so we can elevate above our own limitations. That's the idea. That's the idea behind everything, right? Otherwise, it's kind of like the full moon. Even police officers will tell you that the towns go crazy during full moon and they have to deploy even more police officers. But because they're aware of that, the energies and how it affects the city, then they can come ready with the right tools, right? That's how I want us to approach the hysterectomy. Get yourself a birth chart reading, get yourself a transit reading to see, are there any crazy transit that you're going through right now in life that, why are you feeling, that is pushing you towards doing something as radical as a hysterectomy? Because I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the doctors kind of like belittle it a lot. It is very radical. Okay. It's not even, it's the whole aftermath of of that I feel like doctors don't talk about at all a lot. There's not enough follow up that's done. It's like you do your hysterectomy, okay, bye. They tell you like immediate physical, physical, how to, what's the word I'm looking for? Remission, what's the word I'm looking for? After you have surgery, then the things you're supposed to do, I can't remember my words, to get better. Oh gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting this word. They tell you that, they talk about that on the physical aspect. Again, no one tells you about, oh, did you know that a hysterectomy is also gonna impact you mentally, and that you might, it makes sense. It's gonna like really disrupt your hormones, and then you're gonna hit like a crazy intense depression where you might feel like jumping out the window. But that's normal because it's just your hormones, So no one tells you that. You find the hard way. So this is what I want to talk about. I don't want to digress too much. I actually had a hysterectomy video on my YouTube channel. I actually privatized them recently. I mean, for a long time. It's been a long time. So they're not available to watch because I feel like that's just a chapter that I'm ready to just like, just move on from. I'm still thinking about whether or not I want to like reopen them, because I really do think the information I shared there was very valuable. So I'm still thinking about that. But in the meantime, I still wanted to make occasional videos about that, linking it back to astrology, because this is one thing that I find that could have really, really offered the guidance that I was looking for back then. When I was deciding whether or not to do the hysterectomy, I turned to, medical family doctors, thinking like, well, they would know. Nobody had a clue, you know. And everyone was just like after the fact, oh, why did you do that? Didn't you know about that? So this is where I really feel like an astrology reading and an astrology consultation, around my transit, because again, looking back, I was going through some crazy transits back then. If I knew that, I would have been aware and I would have slowed down a little bit more. Again, there's always two sides to life. It's never black and white like that. There's one part where I really believe that some things are kind of meant to happen, but at the same time, if you find yourself in this situation where you're considering a hysterectomy, please, when you're thinking about, like, if you're thinking, oh wow, I can't afford a consultation reading, I'm sorry, but when you're comparing the price of a consultation, you're gonna spend like what, 250, 300, 350 on a consultation. That can literally save your life, and that can literally save you from maybe like entering, perimenopause, or having like heart issues, or having like all sorts of things for years and years and years down the road. When you're thinking about, like, God forbid, when you're thinking about all these things that can save you from, and give you the clarity that you need to make the right decision for yourself, whether it is go through with it or go through with something else, this is the best investment that you can make for yourself. Believe me on that. So on that note, I that's all I wanted to say, in case you wanted to do like a transit reading with me, because again, I went through the same thing. So I feel like I'm very well, placed to guide you on that. I have my booking link down below. If it's not with me, with anyone, trust me, do yourself a favor, and this is the best investment that you could do if you're considering a hysterectomy right now. On that note, my love, I will see you in the next one, and keep shining bright like a diamond. All right, my love, I'll see you in the next one.